As we've been talking here at IRC, email is very effective, but there's that central question: how often should you send email? I'm Daniel Burstein, Director of Editorial Content at Marketing Sherpa. We are here at the Marketing Sherpa Media Center at IRCE, and I'm joined by Pete Prestipino, Editor-in-Chief of Website Magazine. Thanks for joining us, Pete.
Thanks, Daniel.
So I was reading this here, Website Magazine, and you were talking about email frequency. What's the frequency? So what would you advise to marketers? What are some factors they should look at when they're considering how often to send emails?
Well, I think there's three primary things any marketer needs to send, whether they're in e-commerce or information publishing or simply a service provider. Those are, what's the strategy in place? Meaning, how often will we be sending, or how often do we really need to send? So are we, that really kind of relates to what product are we selling? Selling a grand piano is a lot different than selling a pair of shoes. So, one may need a lot longer of a sales cycle, grand piano. So what you really want to do is sort of plot out exactly what you need in terms of a level of information that a consumer is going to feel confident in and be able to base their buying decision with. So that's one of the primary is, what do you need to accomplish? And that all comes from strategy.
So when we're thinking of that strategy too, as internet retailers, e-commerce companies, should we think of some of those triggered sends, the transactional sends, the shipping sends, and some of those things as well in the overall big picture?
Absolutely. I think a lot of it depends on the customer, and I think a lot of that depends also on, again, the product that we're selling. So, of course, you need to leverage a lot of the real-time sends and a lot of the personalization technologies that we'll find here at IRCE, and that a lot of merchants are really kind of engaging in right now are really important. But at the same time, there's a flow that needs to occur. You don't want to send 5 emails within an hour, and you don't want to send 5 over too long of a period of time where you can't really get that needed impression that's required to build the trust that's necessary to actually convert a user from a prospect to a buyer.
How should we factor in other channels into that consideration too?
Well, most of us consumers are omni-channel, meaning we're a social. We still shop offline in some regard, and of course we're sitting in front of our inbox most days, or at least a few hours of the day. So retailers today, and every other internet professional, really needs to focus on building a very rich profile of the user to understand exactly where they're coming from at the exact time, and historically where they've spent the majority of their online consumptive behavior. So that could mean social. Did they sign up on social, and do they visit regularly to do any number of things from buy to research? So there's obviously a lot that comes into play in that regard.
Okay. And when we're talking about frequency, do you have some triggers or some things marketers should look out for if they're sending too many or sometimes too few, maybe they're being a little too gun shy?
I think those key metrics are always going to be open rate, and obviously, well, let's start with bounce rate. Often consumers will put in faulty information just to get access to a specific value proposition put forward by the merchant. So what's I think really important is filtering out all the emails that are just no good right from the beginning, and then from there you really start to work with a manageable pool. And from there you look at really important things like open rate, right? And if nobody's opening, you can really take it even a step further and say, are they clicking? Ultimately, did they convert from that click? And if not, what's the time frame? Which goes back to our strategy question: how long does it take to to process a customer from prospect to final sale and actual delivery? So we talk a lot about at Website Magazine about SMAC, social mobility analytics in the cloud. And what's really interesting about that is that you really need to track the user and build these rich user profiles for it to make any difference to the bottom line of the enterprise. So it's really important that you determine the pace on your own. It's different for every merchant and every product and every industry. So it's a research project certainly to undertake in the coming year, and of course in the future as well.
It's really understanding that customer journey.
Understanding the customer is the key. We used to focus more on product, or all retailers used to focus on product and getting it into the hands of the consumer, but consumers are becoming much more sophisticated in their buying decisions and demand a lot more. So we have to create, we are creating dynamic emails that really speak to the needs of the customer. Those that aren't doing it right now are being left behind, and it creates a real opportunity for those that are savvy enough to realize the possibilities.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Pete. Thanks for your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. You can see many more videos from e-commerce experts like Pete Prestipino right here on marketingsherpa.com/IRCE.